Hey, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Milton Kleinpeter. I apologize about that picture up there. I have to get a new one taken. That's my LinkedIn picture, and I cannot believe that I look so different now. Thanks to everyone for being here. Let me assure everyone, there's not a room like this in the country right now. Lacey and Nathan have put together an amazing group. They're amazing people here with skill sets, and I love hearing everyone go around the room about what they need and what they can also offer. I'll do it very quickly. That's why I kind of pushed it, because I knew I'd be up here for a second, then I'll give it over to you, Dan. What I need are connections to help grow our business. We are a business services aggregator, and we help businesses from formation all the way to exit. What I offer is, if you need anything negotiated, I have certifications from the Kellogg School of Business. I've negotiated multi-million-dollar, actually contracts worth hundreds of millions of dollars in the pharma and biotech space, and ran the team of attorneys that did so. And I would be happy to do this at no cost for you if you do need negotiations done. I absolutely love it. Dan, I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you, Milton. My name is Dan Mirgon. I have been really in business 43 years. I've started and run 5 companies. When Nathan and I were talking about this, it really was a kind of a contrast between the large company thinking and the small company thinking. And so my discussion points today will be around helping the little guy figure out that he's not all he thinks he is and needs to get better. And it's going to have some bleed over to the larger companies as well. But what I'm looking for are advisors to the client. In other words, if you have advice that you provide to a business owner who's 500,000 to 10 million in revenue, they're not ready for the big guys yet. They need somebody who's been in the business for a couple of weeks and can walk them down the path. And in most cases, they've been sent away by the broker or the M&A team because they're not ready. And it's not an emotional statement, it's a factual math statement. So we have to get them ready for that piece. So what I can offer is 43 years of experience, but we will take that client and work them through what we call a sellability assessment, which will give a pretty close approximation of what their current value is, and allow them to say, okay, I'm really only worth $1 million. I thought I was worth 10. What do I have to do? And then we bring in other people to help fill in the pieces. Okay?
Thank you so much, Dan. So I have the first question here. Basically, when did I think about my first exit? What does that look like? So when you first start thinking about exit from scale, you should do that early on. But to Scott's point earlier, it's so exciting working in the moment and at the time that you're building the business. You're getting those personal dopamine receptors filled because there's something going new and exciting every day. And as your company matures and as your business grows, guess what happens? It gets a little bit more boring. And that boredom actually is a good thing. You don't need those exciting, making the sales is exciting, but you need to get boring. And boring is what? Accounting. Boring is what? Security. Boring is what? Human capital management. Becoming codified, to Dan's point, people think their businesses are a lot more organized and a lot more tidy than they actually are. And for myself, having a Fortune 500 and Dow 30 background and experiences, when I come into companies and look at them, 99% of the time I see a mess. And that's not a personal affront to the owner, but what you operate in as a small business owner and what SEC compliant accounting are two different worlds. And so I enjoin every owner to think about the exit right after the formation of the business, to think about the actual goals of the business, what you want the business to achieve, how you want to achieve it, and how long that will take. So the biggest lessons I learned from Orchid and from my other ventures, number one, it's people, it's people, it's people. Make sure your founding team is the best founding team you can get and afford. Reward them well. Do not chintz out on your people. Make sure you make them your priority because you're holding their families in your hands. And it's the biggest responsibility you have as a founder when you bring people on board. And you need to take that seriously. I know I do. The other responsibility is, what's your op temp? Who knows what op temp is? Who has a military background? It's operational tempo, right? How fast you're conducting operations repeatedly. Now, some people are going to say, hey, you're like the submarine that's going to run by the icebergs and you can't hear anything. It's okay. Go on and make the mistakes early on. Make them often, get them solved. Slow mistakes kill businesses because you end up married to that mistake, and that comes with ego. The other big point I'll make is this. No matter how tired you are sometimes, you got to jump on that plane and go. We'll talk a little bit later about my biggest failure, and it's a big one. So if you're going to have failures, have big ones. Don't be afraid of them. Don't be afraid of that possibility of failure, and make sure you're always ready to bounce back forward. It's not that time you fail, it's that last time you get up that's going to make the difference for you. Dan?
Thank you, Milton. I think one of the things that they asked me to think about was what are the primary blind spots that I see when somebody's thinking about selling. It's tied directly to the other question that I get all the time: when should I start getting ready? Let's answer the second one, and that's yesterday, or maybe the day before yesterday. I would almost like to see in these incubator systems at SBDC and others that they really force people to think about their business as an asset, not a paycheck job. And if we don't know the difference between those two, right now I have a paycheck job. I've sold my asset-based businesses, but if I quit or get run over by the bus, my business is done. There's nothing for my wife to sell. That's not what we're talking about when we're talking about mergers and acquisitions or business sales. We're talking about a brick and mortar type inventory product driven business that I call an asset business. And so if we don't think about our business, actually think about ourselves, as may say a better way. If I think as the owner, I'm a business owner, that's a problem, because now you're going to be owner-centric. You're going to be involved in every single decision for that company, and you're not going to make it professional, and the buyer's going to look at you and go, nope, don't want that one. But if you look at the business as a shiny asset that has to be polished and perfected, now you're making some traction. Does that make sense? So there's a lot of blind spots, thinking that you know what you know. I'm in the middle of the baby boomers, and I'll end on this one. So the baby boomer generation got their college degrees in the end of the 70s and early 80s, and they took the business class, and they think that's how they're going to sell their business today. 78% of them think they're going to sell to a third-party buyer. Where are those buyers? Has anybody looked at the math? They're not there. So we have to help people understand the world has turned a few times since you learned how businesses can get sold. There's 13 or so different ways that a company can be transitioned, if not more, with all these hybrids coming out. You've got to think outside of what you knew yesterday.
Thank you, Dan. And that kind of brings us up to a couple of real-world examples and how you should and may want to operate your business from the standpoint of strategic partnerships. What is your technology? What is your service? How are your operations not only being conducted, are they being conducted in a manner that is transferable? So let's talk about what you're going to have with your companies. Company-specific risk factors. What are those? Those are factors that are specific to your company, not just the industry, but your company specifically. Dan and I were discussing this earlier. if I have a company and I have two suitors that are looking at that company, and one of the suitors wants a turnkey business that they want to jump in there and run the business themselves, and the other suitor wants a business that they can just basically purchase and it's hands off. Well, what are the company specific risks if you have a company that requires the owner to be there all the time? That is no attraction whatsoever to that second suitor, and it's going to drive your valuation down. So having that intention in building your company and preparing it for sale. I'm going to share a very quick anecdote that I had with a CISO, or Chief Security Officer at a company recently in a lunch 2 weeks ago yesterday. He was on a team that helped to acquire a company. They purchased that company, and they thought they did a very deep dive on all their technology platforms. What, however, they did not fully check was SOC 2 compliance to make sure that everything was up to date and current. It was not. 72, this is a real thing that happened in the last 90 days. 72 hours later, that company was taken over by ransomware, and it cost the owners $1.2 million to get control of their company again. They had to pay it right away, or they would have been, to say on the back foot is the least applicable term possible. But little compliance pieces like that, building your organizational rubric, not to your personal intentions of operating as an owner, but so someone could walk in. I really love what Scott said when he said they built all the Loom videos, had everyone write up all the roles, so that guess what? If you get hit by a train, fall off that mountain, or God forbid have an accident on a racetrack, and I've seen a lot of them, that company still goes on and goes without you. Unfortunately, but it still needs to move on because what? You have people that are depending on that company. Dan, I'll pass over.
Basically, what we're talking about is professionalizing the organization, right? In the small business space, you see the startup in the garage that turns into the retail space, that turns into the bigger production facility, and all of that, but you still have the mentality in the owner that it's okay that my brother-in-law is my sales manager and mom's the bookkeeper. Well, you're gone if the buyer buys you. What makes that buyer think you're going to stick around? 1/3 of the family dynamic just left, and you can pretty much bet the others are going as well. So if you don't professionalize the organization by bringing in professional accounting and an operating system like EOS or Scale Up for the management team, all these other products and services are out there. The problem, though, is that we have to not let the product or the app be our strategy. It's an application of our strategy. And I see this far too often. I'm sure you've seen it as well. Add a tactic, add a strategy, add a piece to this, add a piece to that, and we'll get to where we want to go. But there's no clearly defined, delineated strategy. It's kind of like your strategy is a vision for the company, and the mission is how you're going to fulfill it. It's not that line you put on the back of the receptionist wall, right? Your mission is how you're going to accomplish the big vision. And if you can't get your people aligned around that big vision, I don't care what kind of money or strategies or techniques or fads or trends you follow, you're going to have an also-ran company. And 82% of these companies don't get sold. Let that sink in for a minute. 18 out of 100 asset-based companies that go to market these days that are under, let's say, $15 million are not getting a buyer. That doesn't say they didn't get an offer. They just didn't get an offer. They didn't get a good offer. I'm not saying they didn't get an offer. They're just not getting an offer. They're not selling. And 3/4 of the people that do don't like their deal a year later, usually because of their earnout. So start thinking about your business as an asset when you start it. Bring in the actual professionals who are going to help you professionalize that organization. And if you have to have the hard conversation with the mother-in-law or the cousin who's doing the whatever in your company well, to say, you know what, we love you, you've gotten us here, but we've got to go here, and it means we have to change this position.
Dan, I'm going to ask you to drill in on one thing, and that's going to be on financial transparency and reporting. What are your thoughts on that?
Do it right. Do it right. Do it right. No, it's amazing how many times you can't get clear sales records or 3 years worth of P&L and balance sheets. Oh, we'll get that for you. No, you should have it right here. So I got to change the name on this because I've been using the guy who did Doge. But if Tim O'Leary walks into your business tomorrow, what's your first name? I love your name. And says, Daniel, I want to buy your business. Here's a number. A lot of different ways to respond to that, right? Jump up and down. Tim O'Leary's offered me X number. But what you really need to be able to do is say, thanks for showing up. I appreciate the thought, but your number's too low, and here's what it should be, and here's how we can justify staying that. Now, of all the businesses that you've worked with or know, how many have that, I guess, confidence to be able to make that statement? Yeah, it's less than one, right? Very few people, if any, ever even think about that. But in the fundraising space where I spent 25 years, if you didn't have a case for support, why someone should support you, you weren't going to get the money. I set up the foundation for the Union Rescue Mission in Los Angeles. Charitable gifts, bequests, capital campaigns, all that stuff. There are 5 rescue missions in Los Angeles. Why this one? Why not that one? You got the same problem at a private equity table when they're laying out 30 different companies and they're going, okay, we got to pick one. You had better be the one that shines brightly.
Thanks, Dan. And so, you know, it kind of reminds me of speed dating, but with much bigger stakes. With my apologies.
I'm too old for that. I'm too old for that.
Yeah. So same here. So let's talk about failure. Everybody wants to talk about success. What's the old saying? I think it may be Mark Twain. Success has 1,000 fathers. Failure is an orphan. So I own my failure. So my biggest failure, it was a biopharmaceutical company. Myself and my partner funded it out of our pocket, first couple $1 million. We wanted to preserve as much of our strategic value as possible in the pain space. And we went on a road show in New York, 5 days, 7 to 10 meetings per day. You can imagine that we're pretty crispy after day 5. And so one of the investors that we were getting pretty close with actually said, hey, I'm going out to San Francisco. I'm going to be at this meeting. Can you and the team come out, or you and the other founder come out? I was exhausted, like dead man exhausted. And I don't like working when I'm tired. You make mistakes. I said, hey, why don't we do a video conference and I'll meet you out 2 days later. Just to give you the scale, this is 12, 13 years ago, $47 million on the line. I should have gotten my butt on the plane because someone came in and scooped the deal and took that investor's money. He had $50 million to invest in that healthcare space. And because I did not properly manage and have my intentions together, we lost that deal. And we ended up losing $3.2 million on that deal. We pivoted and ended up with some great data and got that data sold to some other suitors that were really interested in our data in the pain space back when the whole opioid thing was going on. And I got to testify before a subcommittee in Congress around that problem. But the failure was not properly planning not addressing my own operational tempo, something I brought up earlier, to make sure that I was spending my time best as a leader strategically. So what did I learn from that? Better advisors. Make sure you get an ad board very, very early on with people that will not agree with you and are not afraid to tell you the truth. Those are your actual best friends, not the people that are the what do you call them? That they just say go along to get along.
Yes, man.
Yeah, yes men and yes women. You don't want those people on your team. You also want to make sure that you have proper vetting of everyone that's on your team. If you pull me aside afterwards, I'll tell you a story that's actually probably movie worthy about not having the right person on your team. Make sure that's done with deep vetting. And to Dan's point earlier, make sure your entire compliance rubric, make sure your financial rubrics, make sure your operational plans, all of your operations are tight, as we say, tight and right. Zero margin for error. That will increase your valuation and have you up there so high, because the the number of companies that have mom and pop accounting, even if they're doing $12, $15, $20 million a year, is shocking. And I see you back there nodding your head. It's shocking. And if you can put yourself into a position where I'm a big advocate of get to the end now. Go with full SEC compliant accounting. It's a little bit more expensive up front, but guess what? You're done now. You don't have to do the work again. Dan?
Perfect point. I think there's a big difference between cost and expense that a lot of these people don't think through. It cost me nothing to delay because I'm afraid of the expense. I don't want to write a check. But they don't realize what they're doing is compounding the cost of fixing it. Was it Brian this morning talking about getting to the point where all of a sudden he's got this huge company and all of a sudden it's time to sell, but he had to spend time going and making sure everything was ready, right? That cost money. Or Scott. Sorry, I forgot his first name. Forgive me. But that money was wasted, because if we'd started early thinking about this thing as a shiny object that I have to run with excellence as a humble servant warrior that people will help me wage the battle in, none of those things will happen to you, and you'll be ready.
Dan, as we pivot, can you jump in and talk about some of the buyer and investor market trends? You deal with this side of the transaction more than I do, and what you've seen thus far in 2025.
Interestingly, the simplest answer is it's all over the map. It depends on the individual deal. But from a trend perspective, one of the things that shocked me when I looked at this was 55-year-olds are starting businesses at a pace they never did before. It's like, oops, I didn't do it perfect, or I loved it and I'm returning to it. I sold the business and I'm starting another. I think that was probably the biggest surprise to me. I'm seeing an awful lot of discussion and activity around roll-ups. Everybody knows the A1 garage door story.
No, why don't you share it?
I can't remember her name. She's a local owner of the A1 garage door business here. And she franchised it a bunch of years ago. And then all of a sudden, somebody gave her the idea of going out and buying all these little garage door companies up. Not because she's afraid of the competition. She had the market dominance all over the place. But she built efficiency into all these purchases and slapped an A1 garage door label on all these little guys and now everybody was part of the big deal. And the transaction deal for the little guy was sell us 100% of your stock in your company, but we want you to put 30% back into the new company and work with us for 5 years, and we'll sell this rehab, right? This guy named Adam Coffey wrote a book about that. Look it up, it's really great reading. But it's called a roll-up, and you're rolling up the little guy into the big guy, or gal in this case. Those are probably the two that top of mind, because the rest of it's industry specific. I know of an accounting firm in California, one of our clients actually. They just got approached by somebody who's got some innovative multiplier for the accounting industry that's 5x what it used to be. Well, okay, we're going to research that. Is that a new trend? Is that a flash in the pan? Whatever it is. But you got to stay current. You can't think what I knew 5 years ago is relevant. It might be, but you better test it. Right?
Thanks, Dan. How are we doing on time, Nathan? 5 minutes, okay. Why don't we go on and open it up for Q&A? Q&A, who wants to be the first customer?
Customer.
Don't be shy.
Sounds like there's going to be a cost.
Come on.
So my dad's company, very old school, been in existence for 60 years. Some of the employees have been there longer than I'm of age. I want to go in there, the books, the inventory number hasn't changed in 3 years. Very low and top, a lot of work to be done. How do I go in there and how do I keep relationships? I build relationships with people that I mean would be important to me at that point in time. I'll also address the business risks and upskill the business as well.
What role would you be coming in as?
Operator.
Okay. Please.
Okay, so my guiding principle is the main thing I do change, and we were talking about this earlier, I clean the place up. I'm OCD as far as that goes. It will be clean, organized, and look shiny. That is number one. After that, I go and talk to everybody, not about what their role is right now or what it was 2 or 3 years ago, but what would it look like ideally in the next 2 to 3 years if they were in charge specifically of their role or within their business unit. And you will gain so much knowledge and insights from those 2 questions that you will be shocked. And once you do that and they see that you are interested in their opinions and actually applying those opinions, you will get buy-in and actually change that whole entire organization. And I think you can do it, most definitely. Next question.
Come on, we aren't that good. Somebody's got a question.
I'll ask one. Okay, so what's the first action you should take to increase your business value and or prepare your company for sale? It's just what Dan said. Get your financials right. Professionalize your business. And to Scott's point earlier, Scott, when do you wish you would have done all those things? Exactly. Say it again, please. Right off the bat. So when you leave here today, start that process. You have enough knowledge in this room. Dan, is it not correct? I'm sorry, Brian. Yeah, you have Brian here in the room and several other people in the room who are willing to help you in this network. Start that process right away. Okay, come on. One more question. You know, we were talking soft earlier. Why don't you go into that?
Well, I'm thinking the simplest answer is to focus on quality, not quantity. Quality, not quantity. Too many companies these days are so focused on growth that they leave greatness behind. So I'd like to see growth more often as a generic byproduct of building great products, great support, great connections, great vendor role, relationships, all of that. If that's the primary focus, quality will trump quantity all day. Does that make sense?
It does. Thank you. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and actually it's sort of that old line, what is it? Culture beats operations, things like that. So
It's not a softball game.
yeah, I know it's not a softball game, but you know, it's incredible in that when you take care of those soft things, look, there are 50 million MBAs in this country that can tell you on paper, to Dan's point earlier, how to run a business. There are not many people that can tell you how to actually prepare your business for growth and to prepare your business for exit and to transition it. We're about to experience what? The largest transference of wealth in the history of the world. $1.2 trillion in this country alone. And I always do this when we talk about big numbers, and I'll sit down. Difference between a million, a billion, and a trillion. A million seconds is about 12 days. A billion seconds is 32 years. A trillion seconds is 32,000 years. So that's the difference in scale in the number, and that's about to transfer now. So let's make sure we're all on board and we can help others, help ourselves, and help this country grow into an even better place. Thank you so much. That's all I have. Dan?
No, I'm good.
No, I'm good, thank you. Again, just remember, if you've been down this road already, help somebody who needs it, because failure is too easy to trip over without somebody to guide you. So, thank you again.
Well said.